Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from whichever part of the world you may be joining us. Welcome to our community tech talks. So let's get things started. Before I go and jump into this quick intro, if you can just share in the chat from which part of the world you are joining us, that will be really great to see this diverse audience that we have today. So I personally myself find myself in Guadalajara, Mexico. So it's a pleasure to be sharing the space with you. So from Pakistan and India, amazing. Welcome, Muhammad. And from Chile, hello, Francisco. Welcome. From the US as well. And Saudi Arabia. Okay. Amazing places all across the world. So welcome, everyone. It's a happy to have you joining us today. If you're new to this community, um, all of the purpose of this session is for you to keep on learning alongside the expert and your community peers for all things APIs and application integration from Google Cloud, but the Apigee and app integrations. So our goal is going to be ultimately to empower you with knowledge so that you can continue adopting these amazing solutions. So the simple rules of these sessions, you're always going to be finding these recordings available through the community and through the YouTube channel. And we're going to allow for you to interact with us. As you can see, you have the option to open your mic, share your comments in the chat, share reactions, etc. Be mindful of these permissions so that we can continue with a smooth presentation by our expert. Usually we have a topic that a Googler expert presents and brings you a presentation, a demo, but this time we're going to be trying something different with the speaker we have for today. So I have that really good news for you to share. We're going to be meeting almost every Thursday, by exception of our next Thursday. We'll see you up until December the 4th. And like I say, feel free to watch the recap of this session in case you had to drop off or you want to share the recording with a colleague. This is going to be available through you via email and the community and the YouTube channel. So with that, you can share questions throughout the sessions or wait to the end so you can engage with a specific query you may have. And with that, our speaker for today, which is Matt Hartmann, a customer engineer for the Google Cloud team specializing in Apigee and application integration, today is going to be presenting to you, answering live community questions that you have shared throughout the time. So I'm really excited to try this new format with you. It's going to be really important for you to share the feedback on what you think of the sessions. And with that, welcome everyone, and thank you, Matt. Take it over.
Sounds good. I just need contributor access, if you don't mind.
Oh, I missed that. Let me get that fixed right now.
But yeah, while we get that done, I'll just introduce myself. Like Alex said, name is Matt Hartmann. I'm one of the customer engineers here, dealing with anything and everything APIs, integration, kind of how they fit in the AI realm. I've been a customer engineer here for about 2 years. So yeah, nice to meet everyone. And looks like I have access. So let's get right into it. And I'm going to share my window and let me know when you see my screen. So looks like it's up now. First two questions I kind of wanted to cover was surrounding JWT best practices to and through Apigee. So these questions came about a couple months to a year or so at this point. First question surrounds generating refresh and access tokens using JWT. So basically, hey, I have a JWT token. I have a set of claims available to my JWT token, which we'll talk about in a second. How can I take that JWT token and essentially convert it into some sort of access and refresh tokens that I can consume my APIs? Second part, which is a different question, but still within the same JWT token-esque realm, is, hey, we're caching JWTs for 20 minutes, has basically this set of information. We're trying to understand caching policies with JWT tokens, basically where is it stored, how's it stored, and essentially what are the best practices associated with that. So with that said, I'm going to go into the deck and I'm just going to present a piece of information and you'll see a demo with it as well. So with that said, like I mentioned before, and just kind of setting the stage, I'm sure most people know what a JWT might be. If not, think of it as a compact, basically self-contained, secure way to transmit some sort of information from client to server via JSON object. So again, By nature, it should be encrypted, and it basically contains header information about the basically JSON object, the payload, which is those claims we talked about before, so think key value pairs, and some sort of digital signature. So with that, within Apigee, we have a bunch of different ways to deal with JWT tokens and just tokens more holistically. So think decoding JWT tokens. So again, you can extract all of the pertinent key value pairs into Apigee flow variables. You can generate them, you can decode them and verify them as well, assuming you have the public or private key pair required for that use case. Basically, what the first question covered is, hey, can I take a JWT token and can I exchange it for an OAuth-based access and refresh token? The answer in Apigee is yes, and we'll take a look at that a bit more holistically with this demo here. But there's actually an RFC that came out about a year or so ago that's JWT bear exchange for OAuth. So that's an RFC, like I mentioned before. We have a reference example I'll put in the slides that Alex will provide at the end of this session. But basically what we're able to do in Apigee is take the JWT token, we're able to decode it, so extract the claims. Given the pertinent claims, we're able to look up that application's identifier in Apigee, which again, you'll see in a second through this demo. Through those claims and through that underlying verification, so you can basically have a public key available to that token that you can store in a bunch of different places in Apigee. Think key value maps, think custom attributes in your application sets, and items of that sort. And from there, you can mint a token given that external JWT. So what most people do, and as you can see here, looking a bit more holistically, is how most people orchestrate this typical workflow is they use an IDP. Yes, Apigee can not only mint, but verify tokens as well. But most people like to federate to and through their IDP of choice. So think Auth0, think Google's IDP, think Azure AD, kind of what have you, so that you basically extract all that information. You have Apigee basically verifying who's doing what when. And Apigee is essentially acting as a token facade where we can spit out more of an opaque access token. Because oftentimes, yeah, there might be claims available to that underlying JWT token you may not want to present to and through a client. So opaque not only basically obfuscates that information, but also gives you little tiny tokens that become much easier to transmit over the internet just by nature of the amount of bytes being transmitted. So with that, we do have a sample proxy I wanted to showcase that one of our CEs did create previously. So basically it's a token facade based process. This is something you want to deep dive further in, let us know in the community, and we can obviously do that with the actual owner of this specific workflow. But like I mentioned before, Apigee is going to act as a token facade behind the scenes for 6 different IDPs. Basically, it extracts all of the pertinent information specific to the RFC. So if you want to implement Pixie, we can deal with code verifiers and code challenges. If you just want to do your typical 3-legged OAuth dance, we can do that as well. So basically all it's doing is it's logically storing that information so it can verify it later. And essentially, assuming you get a token, it's going to cache it so that it can verify it further upstream. And we'll talk about token caching in a second. So with that, if I just go into my debugger panel, just so you can see it all going through this facade-based workflow, here's this little app here that, again, acts as a token facade to all of those IDPs of choice. So as you can see, I have a bunch of different IDPs I can federate to and through. Just given this is a Google demo, I'm just going to use my Google pertinent information here. So I'm going to sign in. And as you see, basically it's prompting me through that 3-legged OAuth. You saw the redirect back to the underlying IDP of choice. You also saw how I was able to exchange that code for an access token. So here's my ID token specific to my user. And what most people do is they basically obfuscate all that information via an opaque access token. So I did use Pixie, which involves a verifier and a code challenge. And again, that's all going to be cached to and through the Apigee instance. So if I use that token, I can access data further downstream. So again, like I mentioned before, it basically stores a bunch of information, redirects me to the pertinent IDP of choice. And then from there, I basically get the auth code. So again, no credentials are really being presented or passed through Apigee. It's acting as that facade I talked about before. And then from there, you basically post that information, it hits it, and it stores the access token and generates an opaque token. So that was the first part that I wanted to cover. The second part is how does caching work with tokens? And then from there, if there's any questions, concerns, we can elaborate a bit further. So how caching works in Apigee is going to depend on the token type. So if you're using a JWT token and you're not actually using the OAuth pertinent policies for that to basically store that external access token, like I mentioned before, there's going to be a different workflow for each. So within Apigee, there's two different caching strategies within the internals of it. The first one is more of that short-lived in-memory level 1 cache. Typically, out of the box, it's going to be a 1 second based caching strategy. And then obviously that information is going to get pursed to the more persistent database. So think on a write operation, think of that scenario. It's going to push it to the L1, assuming you're caching it, as well as pushing it to the L2. Assuming a read scenario, first it's going to check the level 1, which is specific to that message processor. So what I'm getting at with that is it's going to check its own memory cache, which it may not be populated to and through all of the different instances available to your replica sets. Might miss, because again, it might only be cached to specific message processors. Got to read that information from the level 2 more persistent cache and basically rise that information upstream so that you can cache it later. To the question raised in the community on an update operation, if it's already available in that specific message processor's L1 cache, it's going to delete it and remove it from the L2 cache as well. If you're using it specific with the OAuth token workflow, there's a specific config property, basically where you can expire those OAuth tokens further downstream. Because again, when you think about basically providing an OAuth related token, it's hitting an underlying data store, that level 2 cache, which could have a performance hit associated with it. So essentially you're basically determining, hey, where do I care about performance versus correctness? Because again, you can basically remove from the cache in 1 second, but oftentimes someone may not want to. Out of the box, those token policies expire any tokens they know about in 3 minutes. That's a configurable property. If people are curious, I could put it in the chat. But again, it's really going to depend on that use case of, do I care more about performance or do I care more about correctness? So given that, you can fine tune it anywhere from a second to the 3 minute out of the box based policy. So that was the first 2 questions. Anything, questions, concerns, anything I can elaborate a bit further on? Sounds like a no, which is great. So with that, let's go to the second question. So I will go to slide 8. So should see that now. So second question, and I will go to that specific question in the community, talking through on-premise connectivity to and through application integration. So basically, hey, I have these 2 application sets. One is a Windows app, basically some sort of NFS, CIFS, SMB instance that I need to take a CSV file. It's on-premise. Second part of that as well is, hey, I have an on-premise API. Return CSVs. I need to get these files into my GCP environment. How can I do that? So how can I do that? Specifically using application integration. So with that, a lot of people don't necessarily know about the on-premise connectivity workflows supported through application integration. But if we look from essentially the right side in, the easiest way to think about this is I have my on-premise or different cloud instances. Typically, there's going to be some sort of protocol I can communicate to that instance. So the first one that was highlighted was basically an API service. They also highlighted some sort of CIFS, SMB, some sort of legacy protocol to communicate to an instance as well. Assuming there's connectivity to Google Cloud from your on-premise instance, so whether it's a VPN, some sort of tunnel, or essentially if there's public access, great as well. We can create these sort of Google Cloud networking constructs to communicate to your instance. So essentially a hybrid network endpoint group allows you to basically create a configuration object in Google Cloud to logically link to that service. You can put a load balancer in front of it for health checking purposes. And how this works is via PSC, so Private Service Connect, where you have a service consumer that's essentially pulling information from a service producer via Private Service Connect related objects. Once that's available to that integration connector that we talked about before, you can use the 150 plus available out-of-the-box connectors to connect to and through that instance set. So a couple of ways I would recommend connecting given the use case. The first one is the custom connectivity-based workflow orchestrated by application integration. So as long as you have an open API specification, which given this is an API, if it's RESTful, it probably has one, you can take that open API specification and create a connector right in Apigee. So it's going to basically take those constructs, so basically the schema definitions, request response patterns, and items of that sort, and generate a managed connector for you. There's also RESTful services, HTTP services, connectors, etc. There's an FTP service for that NFS CIFS based scenario. If you're looking for more of a specific connector for SMB, there's actually one on the way. I can't really speak a whole lot to roadmap as a part of this community session, but if this is something you are interested in, let us know and we can have a further deep dive as needed. But again, a bunch of different ways to connect. Another way to connect is just using GCS, so Google Cloud Storage, to pull that information. GCS does automatically sync with NFS and automatically publishes any sort of events you have via pub/sub trigger or event arc. So again, there's a bunch of different ways to do it as long as you have this network connectivity pattern that I talked about here established to and through Google. So with that, any questions, concerns, anything I can elaborate a bit further on? Cool. Sounds like a no. So we're operating right on time. So final question, and I find this a pretty interesting one. I wanted to save this for last, is surrounding performance. Because we do get a lot of questions in the community and just within our customer and partner base surrounding, hey, how do I best troubleshoot performance and performance best practices? So this is your typical use case of, yeah, my proxy works to expectation 99% of the time. Occasionally it spikes. I don't know why. I've looked at analytics, don't really get it. What should I look at? So with that, I created a little dashboard of just best practices and things that I typically look for before I get into specific proxy design best practices. So the first is the obvious ones. So if you have a slow target or it's taking a lot of networking hops to hit a target, obviously there's going to be latency associated with that. So let's say your Apigee proxy takes 500 milliseconds, and guess what? Your backend target responds in 500 milliseconds as well. So there's not much we can do from that perspective if your backend targets are slow. Those we need optimizations or an optimization as at a networking level. So whether it's a VPN, a tunnel, you need to kind of beef up the TPS associated with that, or have different components or install something like Apigee closer to your underlying service set. Second item I wanted to highlight as well is the whole stateless versus stateful based use case. Some policies in Apigee are just inherently stateless. So really don't have a dependency to any IO or throughput to the system. So think verifying an access token, assigning a message, extracting variables and items of that sort. Second part of it is more of stateful. So things that incur IO. So think of a quota policy, key value map, caching where it's actually pulling from something. So obviously, depending on what you're doing, if you're highly hitting these conditions or you're storing large payloads in something like a cache, there's obviously going to be a performance hit associated with that because you're pulling basically these large payloads across a network. So with that, just kind of setting the stage, I wanted to show a couple of pieces of information I typically use to help troubleshoot. So with that, what I wanted to showcase first is the out-of-the-box metrics in Apigee, which a lot of people may be familiar with. So as you can see here, you have your typical latency analysis specific to an environment. A proxy, you can see what's working with your caching strategies so that you can fine-tune this as well. With that, you can also evaluate some sort of target performance to see if your underlying target servers are causing an issue at all. So uniquely sharded by IP address, DNS, kind of what have you. This is where I typically recommend you first start. And again, you can set custom key value pairs to fine tune given your use case. I would always say start here. There's flow variables that have this information as well. So, hey, when did my client get this data? When did my target get this data? When did my client return this data and kind of what have you, given your use case. But again, use the metrics out of the box. They're already available to you. Second item with that as well. This is something a lot of people may not know. Is you can actually get per specific policy latencies associated with a specific proxy. So as you're probably aware, like I mentioned before, there's 150 plus metrics available out of the box to Apigee. So with that, all this information is funneled into the Google Cloud monitoring stack. So with that, there's metrics specific to my policies. So policy, I just said, hey, I want to extract all the policy latencies associated with a specific proxy, and I want to sum it by the policy name. So yeah, you can fine tune depending on this information, and you can see what's taking the longest, which pretty self-explanatory there. It's all the stateful policies. So anything maybe custom scripting, anything that can require optimizations that isn't necessarily stateless are usually taking more time. So people don't typically know that you can create dashboards given this information. So again, you can fine tune and refactor given your use case. So with that, this is actually perfect timing because I wanted to give like 5 minutes at the end to see if there were any additional questions, concerns, or really anything I can elaborate further of, or any specific questions that people may have in the chat that might be unrelated.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
I
of course.
guess Daniel made a comment. I'm not sure if it was related to Q2 or Q3. Doesn't PSC become expensive in the long run?
That's a good question. It depends on how you're using PSE. So when you think of PSE networking charges, if the traffic stays in region and you're consuming a PSE service, then no, it won't. So if you have a regional resource accessing a regional client, most of those networking costs are just specific to PSE ingress, which aren't necessarily typically expensive. If it's a global PSE resource, then yeah, it could become more expensive because you could have to deal with cross-regional traffic, which, I mean, all this is documented, and we have a networking calculator specific to your volume and bandwidthing requirements. But at the end of the day, assuming you're following a lot of our best practices, you're publishing a regional resource to a regional client, then no, all you really charge for is any sort of PSE ingress fee with it running, which is like, I think it's a penny an hour or something along those lines. So relatively not expensive. And again, there's ways to optimize that. So if you're not using the connector, turn it off, which means that the PSC won't be used. There's ways that you can shard the number of nodes. So you can basically say, hey, I only want 2 nodes available at any point in time instead of like the out of the box. You can do that as well. A lot of different ways to kind of cut costs given your use case.
Good. Thank you, Matt. That was a question we had in the chat, but anyone, if you'd like to share a comment or pop a question, feel free to just open your mic or raise your hand.
Yeah, even if it's unrelated to anything we talked about here. Yeah, hey, no.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to check
I think you're very low right now. Is that just me, or is
Yeah.
that?
Well, is it good?
That's
That's
better.
better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I just general question for future session. Are we planning to have any sessions using like Apigee APIs in like specifically ADK or API Hub toolset in Gemini Enterprises for agent space or agent building, those kind of things?
You know by chance, Alex, or it's something we could definitely get on the roadmap if that's something we're interested in. I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's a very good topic. I just don't know if that's anything we have targeted in the next couple weeks.
Not at the moment that I recall, but that's a really good point that you bring now, the request of a topic, because I specifically opened a thread in the forum so you could share ideas on any topics you would like to see for the next year. So let me just ping that topic here in the chat. So you're more than welcome to share these comments in there. I took note of it. But yeah, just not for you. No, sorry, not exclusively to you, Anil, but everyone in this session. Feel free to share your topics and idea or deep dives that you would like to see upcoming here. I just ping here in the chat the link, and thank you for bringing that up, Anil. Appreciate it.
How do we add here topic?
It's the link that I pasted in the chat. It's like a topic thread from the forum. So if you log in with a Google account, you should be able to post a reply. Or otherwise, in the feedback form that it's in the poll at the top, you'll be able to see a Google Forms. In there, you can also share your feedback for topics and things you would like to see.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you have specific community questions you want addressed as a part of these sessions as well, let us know. We'd be more than happy to. I basically picked unanswered community questions because, like, I thought those would be the most pertinent. But if there are specific ones that you want to deep dive further on, let us know. We're more than happy to help.
Absolutely. All righty. Any more questions or comments, everyone? All righty. So I guess we can start wrapping up this speed session we have today. Yeah, Matthew.
Maybe one comment. Thanks a lot, Matt. We have a lot of things that we can use in Apigee sample with Matt share with you that you can for identity facade and so on. So the goal is also for you to not start from zero. So maybe we will share the link after.
That was the goal. I was going to put it in the presentation comments, so everyone will get them.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome, everyone. So, like I was mentioning earlier, sorry for the bark, unpredictable that from the neighbor. But yeah, it's going to be really valuable for us to receive your feedback on this new format of the community sessions. So as you see on the top right corner of the Google Meet, you have the poll that has been open and you can share your feedback on how satisfied you were with this session on a scale from 1 to 5. But if you'd like to share more in detail feedback, you can go to the links in the Google form. All of your feedback, it's always going to be anonymous, so rest assured this is only with the purpose for us to keep improving these sessions for you. So we look forward to seeing you back on December the 4th to start wrapping up the sessions of the year. We're going to be doing this in format of live Q&A answers to your community questions. And like Matt mentioned, feel free to nominate one of the questions you would like to see answers to. It's going to be the same time, 9 a.m. Mexico City, 10 a.m. New York, 4 p.m. Europe time. So we look forward to seeing you here. And looking forward into the deep dive for the month of December. It's going to be on Apigee MCP. We're going to be having back again in this scenario, Sai and Miguel joining us. That session is going to be moved an hour later. So it's going to be 5 p.m. Europe time, 11 New York, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Brazil. So we look forward to seeing you here. If you'd like to keep engaging with our spaces here, you have the QR codes for community, for Apigee and integration services, which in integration service, you can find all details for app integration and integration connectors. I'm also going to make sure when I share the link, when I share the email for the post event to you, I'll attach these links as well, so you can have easy access to those. And with that, thank you so much, Matt, for this amazing presentation.
Yeah.
We look forward to having you again in this space.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye, everyone.